Episode 4 of Season 2 of Severance has recently been released, and this one actually came in as the second highest rated episode ever of the show, clocking a massive 9.2 on IMDb. Woe's Hollow was an episode that was truly immersive and allowed us to get closer to the characters, the confused state that they were in, whilst also witnessing story-changing revelations that were supported by a score that mirrored the emotions and feelings that were present in the environment. There was just so much about it that was memorable and made it an absolute pleasure to watch. So with that, I feel like I couldn't not share exactly why I feel this episode is perfect. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. John Turturro's performance as Irving. One of the things that stands out most in this episode is the convincing performance that John Turturro gave as Irving. Irving has long been one of my favourite characters in the show, and he was in fact my favourite in Season 1. The soft, gentle tone that Irving has is almost fatherly and grandfatherly, and there's always been a softness that draws you in and provides that sense of comfort. During this episode, we got that familiar softness, but it was blended with a sharp edge as we saw the character acting in ways that I didn't feel like we'd really ever see. This was more so towards the end with what he was doing to Helena. This was Irving's episode, as was shown to us, with the way that it started with him opening his eyes and it concluding with him shutting them and entering the eternal dark. A touch that I thought was just incredible from a creative point of view and beautiful in the emotional sense. Irving's sense of mourning has been at the heart of the character throughout this season, and I feel I've genuinely felt the pain that he's been in. This is all down to John's performance. Sometimes he doesn't even need to say a word, it's just done with his facial expressions, the silence and his eyes. It's cliche, but as Shakespeare said, eyes are the window to the soul, and with the grief and mourning process that Irving's been going through, it's something that enables his feelings to be translated across in the most effortless of ways. That's why I feel like the episode concluding with him closing his eyes was a moment that carried so much weight to it, because his eyes have given so much away about him over the course of the 5 episodes, and with them closing, they were shut forever. The only time there was a real sense of happiness in Irving was in his dream where he saw Bird, and it was a real heartbreaking moment. This is because I feel we hadn't really seen him smile once in this season, and the smile that he was experiencing wasn't even something that was real. I loved the detective mode that he entered when he was up close and smiling with Helena around the campfire, and also when he was in the forest with her. The cunningness and belief that he was right after the revelation was delivered in such a confident yet cool way. It was almost humorous. I also thought the switch in him from being on the cusp of drowning Helena and screaming and shouting to then cradling Helly and letting her know that everything was going to be okay was really impressive. The performance of Irving is always something that I've been impressed with, but the sheer range of emotions that he went through in such a short amount of time showed just how much of a talent John Turturro is, and I'd say he was definitely one of the best things about this episode. The creation of atmosphere and its immersive feeling. One thing that Severance as a show does really well is its creation of the atmosphere that it wants the viewer to feel, the underpinning tension that's always there between the characters, and the fleshing out of the world that's been established. Usually we're used to the white walls on the severed floor and the mind-numbing blankness of everything, designed so the workers stay focused on the task at hand. That was what I expected to see when the episode opened up. However, like Irving, Dylan, Helena and Mark and the confused state that they were in, I was experiencing that exact feeling with them, as if I was the 5th member in MDR. That unexpected nature made the episode feel that bit more immersive, and for all of the emotions in the episode, such as the underpinning tension between Irving and Helena, to feel that bit more personal. Because I was just as confused as what they were whilst they were going on their quest to Woe's Hollow and were listening to the 4th appendix. This was their first time being there and experiencing it, and it was the same for us too. Just like how the innies expected to awake on the severed floor, I expected to be there as well, so the shock was felt on both sides. I'd argue that it felt more immersive than many of the other episodes just because we'd gotten used to the formula, as work often feels. So I thought no mention of an ORTBO until it actually happened made that feeling even more prominent, and the mysterious, haunting, tense undertones that allowed for the steady pacing contributed to the story being told so well, and for the feelings that Stiller and co wanted us to experience to be center stage and absorbed. The scene in the tent and the forest. There was a scene in this episode that I thought was just simply incredible, and it was the moment where Mark and Helly were being intimate with one another, and it kept intercutting with Irving walking through the forest during the night on his own. The colour palette for Mark and Helly's scene was orange and yellow, and it symbolised warmth, togetherness, and positive emotions. This is most likely because Helena was experiencing a feeling that she'd never properly had on the outside: intimacy and romance. The very thing that it seemed like she was craving in episode 2 when she was watching the video. So the warm orange hue captured that feeling perfectly. I'd also say when you're in a tent, it can often feel extremely hot in terms of temperature. So I feel like it was leaning into that, and it made the environment feel like how it actually would have. However, with it constantly cutting to Irving whilst Mark and Helly were being intimate, it was a contrasting setting which had a colour palette of black, dark blue, and grey. It symbolised a coldness, loneliness, the emptiness that he had inside of him, and a sadness too. All feelings that Irving had been experiencing throughout the episode. With the visuals supporting what the character was feeling, and it happening right after Helena said that Irving was bitter because he's never going to see Bert again. It really represented that space that he had in his mind and how hurt he was in knowing that the person that he loved was gone. The vast open landscape was something that was felt in this scene, and you could feel the pain that Irving had inside of him just by seeing this lone figure in this massive amount of space, and then with the close-up seeing the looks in his eyes and the darkness that was all around him. Then, when it was paired with Mark and Helena's scene, it allowed the weight of how he was feeling to be felt even more. It was just an all-round well-constructed scene, and the powers of contrast worked its magic, and through the use of visuals specifically, we got to experience what both Helena was feeling and also what Irving was feeling. Mr. Milchick's performance. Another actor that I feel did a phenomenal job in this episode was Tromel Tillman as Mr. Milchick. I love Mr. Milchick as a character because he pretty much sums up corporate with the fake smiles and fake well-being procedures and activities. But in this episode, we got a blend of the corporate side, but also a side to him that we've not really seen before. When Milchick was punishing Irving and saying how he'd wipe his existence off of the world and make it feel like he never drew a breath there, before then saying, "May Kier guide you through the eternal dark," as he sentenced him to death, I felt every word that he said. The harsh, fierce stare that he was giving Irving as he was about to condemn him was thick and full of force. And when they locked eyes, the tension was there. There was no fake smile like we're used to seeing with Milchick. This was disappointment, anger, rage, and frustration at the actions that Irving was doing. I'd then say as the camera was slowly moving in towards Milchick as he said those lines to Irving, it was a great technique that made it feel like we were building towards a crescendo with the scene from a visual sense. His words painted a haunting backdrop to the inevitability that we kinda knew was on the horizon. This was an episode that at the time I did thoroughly enjoy, but it's over the course of the weekend where it's been sitting in my mind and just simmering away where the found appreciation for it has grown and developed. I genuinely think it was because it was a setting and a backdrop that I didn't expect in the slightest when I put the episode on. Just like the characters when they arrived there. But with the performances, the symbolism, the score, the haunting nature of the clones, Woe's Bride, and the immersive nature that it had, it genuinely was a perfect episode of television, and episode 5 is going to have to do something pretty impressive to rival what we just watched. So, there you have it, why Severance Season 2 Episode 4 is perfect. If you want to see more videos on Severance Season 2 being broken down, talking points being dived into, and theories and predictions, then click on the card in the top corner. There'll be a playlist there. And also, don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss a video. Does this rank as the best episode in Severance for you? Share your thoughts in the comments. As always, thanks for tuning into the video, and I'll see you in the next one.